What's up, you guys? We are back on Carnivore Experiment. I got Haley over here. Haley, what's going on in your world today?
Nothing much. Still on bodybuilding prep for a bikini competition in August. Excited about today's show and all of the content we're going to be putting out. So life is good. Life is good.
Yes, absolutely. So we've made some, well, first, you guys, we're going to talk about today carnivore on a budget, by the way. Okay, I want to make sure you guys all know this. One of the biggest objections about carnivore diet, if you've got over the idea that, maybe eating a bunch of meat is good for you and it's not going to kill you, then, the next thing people go to is their finances, and they worry about the fact that maybe it's going to cost too much or cost more, and nobody can do that, right? So we're going to talk all about that today and talk about how you can really set yourself up for the ultimate success on carnivore diet within whatever budget you got. I don't care how much money you make. I don't care if you got a little piggy bank with 4 coins in it. We will tell you how to use those 4 coins to get yourself on a carnivore diet, okay? So first, though, let's talk a little bit about you, Haley, because obviously we've been talking about your journey throughout the episodes and going over, what we're doing on prep, what we're doing with bodybuilding, why this has been such a big, experience for you. And you've been recently doing Lion Diet, which those of you that don't know, it's just ruminant meat only. And we actually clicked off the Lion Diet this past week. So let's talk about that, how you've been feeling, why we did that, and just what, it's been about a week now. I think it was Monday last week when I was like, hey, let's throw the lion away. And here we are today, back on the full carnivore. So talk to us a little bit about that.
Yeah, so I did the Lion Diet for maybe a month, maybe like 30, 35 days. And the goal was that we had set forth was we were like, all right, let's do this the whole prep. And then we were chatting last week and Ryan essentially was like, look, I don't think that this is impacting your results to the capacity that maybe we thought. Like, it's not making as big of a difference. And we could probably stick with carnivore and you could eat more food, have a more variety and get the same results come the end of prep. And essentially Ryan left it up to me. He's like, do you want to stay Lion or do you want to do carnivore? And I was like, if we can get the same results and I'm eating butter and eggs and bacon and chicken and all of the things, then let's do that. Right.
Yep.
So we switched back to carnivore. I still eat a ton of beef. Beef is still the primary thing that I'm eating, but I would say second to that is eggs. I eat 2 or 3 eggs a day now. And I feel great. Energy in the gym, everything's been great. Everything was also great online. So I would say in terms of performance, I'm not noticing really that big of a difference. But it is really nice to have more variety back in the diet and to be eating the way that I was excited to eat after my show, right? It kind of took away like this feeling of like, oh, I'm on prep and I'm super restricted, right? Because I always knew that I wasn't going to continue eating the Lion Diet after my show. So I was like, oh, I can't wait to eat eggs after my show. I can't wait to eat these things after my show. And now that I've added those things back in, it's really made prep for the show a lot easier. I would say like mentally and just enjoying more food and enjoying more food with my family. So yeah, it's been a great transition and we'll see. I mean, we talked about how if we felt like it was negatively impacting progress, if I was progressing better on the Lion Diet, that we would switch back to that.
Yep.
But I think we'll know that in a few weeks, probably.
Yeah, well, I already know it, but I say that all the time on this show, so that's fine. But yeah, the thing is, you guys see, this is another form of the carnivore experiment, right? We're always changing things, trying different things. So, I think that everybody listening, if you are carnivore or you're thinking about carnivore, you need to also be open to the idea that, you might need to change things up every now and then, see how things are working, see what's going on. Don't get stuck in one way. I know a lot of carnivores have really found their thing and that's what they like and they stick to it. Like there's some people doing, versions of the Lion Diet, if you will, for years on end, and that works great for them. Some people know they don't want to do that, right? And you got to find what's going to work best for you. You got to figure out what's going to be the best for the results, right? And so for Haley specifically, Obviously, I've coached her this whole time, leading her through the carnivore diet and into prep and everything else. And, I use a lot of my own experience knowing about Haley from coaching her for 6 years, if we have talked about, to be able to come up with decisions like that. And, based on her feedback and everything else. So it's not to say everybody doing Lion should just go off of it. It's to say that you got to figure out what's going to work the best for you and what's going to be working. And that is very relevant in carnivore diet, in, ketovore, in keto, in Lion diet, any of these versions of anything. You have to figure out where those variables all that work for you. And so for Haley to bring more food back in, basically, which is not much. You guys were talking about like eggs, bacon, and, some other things there. But I already knew it wasn't really going to shift much because, I believe that honestly, throughout the progress of time now, her being on this diet the way it has, we've probably improved a lot of things that were, in the way before to now where she can better receive some of these foods even, which is why I was like, I don't really think it's going to affect the prep negatively at all. So either way, it's something to be said for the fact that, again, the Lion diet is probably the most extreme version of carnivore, if you will, where it eliminates basically every other thing. But I don't really think that it's supposed to be something you do forever. Like, it should be something where you pull it out, see if things affect you, and then bring it back in, bring some other foods back in. If you get negatives, okay, maybe you want to pull those out again. But if you don't, why would you only stick to one type of thing for doing that, right? And that's kind of the whole principle and the whole premise. So for those of you out there, just remember that on your carnivore experiment, on your own carnivore journey, don't be afraid to play around with some variables. Like, what's the worst that's going to happen? Something, it's not like we're talking about, hey, we threw 10 donuts at you to see what would happen. No, we're talking about the shift of eggs and bacon versus just straight red meat. So anyway, that's not even the topic of the show. I'm going off already. Let's get down to business, Haley. Let's talk a bit about budgeting for the carnivore diet.
Yes.
Carnivore diet on a budget, right? And so obviously this is a huge thing people talk about a lot. I would say it's probably the second most prominent objection you'll hear from anybody that has even considered it, or, people that will never consider it. They will say first, no way, that doesn't make any sense. I like eating other things too much. I love carbs. Or they'll say, you're going to die. And then they get on to, yeah, that costs way too much. I don't make that kind of money. I can't do that. I can't afford to eat only meat. But it's really a big misconception I find that people have with this. The idea that you actually spend more eating meat is not really the truth when you look at the facts. And, Haley, I'm sure you can talk a little bit to some of that. Did you notice when you first shifted into carnivore, was your grocery bill just outrageously more? Were you like, what the hell just happened here? Now I'm freaking out.
We actually ended up saving money because I wasn't inhaling all of the carbs in the house.
Yes.
Because I think people, I don't know how much meat people think that they're going to be eating, right? But it's almost like they think like, I don't know. It's almost like you're like, oh my gosh, this is so expensive. So I can't, like, there's no way we can do this, but they're forgetting you're taking out everything else.
Yep.
You know what I mean? It's not like you're buying all of your regular groceries and then you're buying a lot more meat, right? Like you're no longer buying cereal and fruits and pastas and all of these other things that actually really do add up. Unless of course you have a family. Like for me, I'm carnivore. My family is not carnivore. However, we still saved money with me switching to the carnivore diet because meat is really satiating. This is something we were talking about. You're not eating like, think about it. When you're eating like the American Standard Diet or whatever, people are having 3 to 4 meals a day, arguably, and then they're having a ton of snacks. And you're essentially grazing all day. You're eating all day. People eat all day, all the time. They have snacks in their purse. They're just constantly eating, right? On the carnivore diet, you're eating 1 or 2 meals. And it's very optimal to really get it down to 2 meals because even before when I started the carnivore diet, I was like eating throughout the day still. And then we transitioned. You were like, Haley, tried the 2 meals a day thing. Eating 2 meals a day works so great on carnivore because you eat until you're full in the morning. You feel amazing. You're satiated all day. You don't need to snack. You don't need lunch because you're still full. It's like you ate 3 hours ago, but you ate all this beef, all these eggs, right?
Right.
And then you go and you eat dinner and you're eating essentially the same thing again. And then you're like, wow, I still feel amazing. And then the food is really satiating. I would say I would say 10 ounces of ground beef, which is what I ate before this podcast, is way more satiating than like a regular sized Jersey Mike sub and chips. If I had a regular sized Jersey Mike sub and chips with a soda, I would still need to eat 3 hours from now. Because that's still just like bread, quick energy, chips, soda, like all of that. Like I'm going to crash and I'm going to be hungry in 3 hours. With the beef and eggs that I just ate, I know that I'm not going to need to eat till tonight. Like I just know, like I'm going to be full. I'm not even going to think about it. And so I think people, they think about how much food they're intaking and they equate that to the carnivore diet, but that's not reality. You're not going to eat the same amount of beef at the frequency you do carbs.
Right.
If that makes sense. Am I making sense?
100%. Yeah. And it is really too. Yeah, go ahead. Sorry.
Yeah, it's just you're not eating that much food. People eat all day and then they're like, there's no way I could do this on the carnivore diet. And it's like, you're not eating that way. You're not eating as much. You're really not. You're intaking a higher caloric, denser food, which actually equates to less food than you eating a sandwich and your Frappuccino and your bag of chips and then your other bag of chips. And then you're going out to dinner for margaritas with, your 3 appetizers and your dessert. Like it is so much more cost effective. Even when my husband and I go on dates, I'm a cheap date now because I'm just eating beef. I'm not getting all the drinks. We're not getting 5 appetizers with the dessert. You know what I mean? We are saving money even with just one person in the family eating this way.
Yeah, exactly. And I think too, the other thing that people got to think about is the food quality, right? So the actual nutrients that you get out of the food that you have on a carnivore diet is going to be vastly more beneficial than the food that you're getting, a lot of in other ways. So, a lot of times people are eating these different things that could be desserts or could be, just bags of whatever and chips and processed this and that. And, that's all part of your diet. Well, yeah, you're eating that and maybe it costs less, but you're also not getting really anything out of it. You're not actually getting any nutrients out of it. You're getting no benefit out of it. It might, appease your appetite for the moment, but your body is still looking for the real nutrients in the food. So when you actually shift over, to eliminating those things, you find not only are you more satiated, like you said, but also that you're spending far less because you don't have a lot of the fluff in your diet anymore. A lot of the stuff that's just useless, not even beneficial. And that's why also people get a lot of benefits. Let's not forget. That's one of the reasons a lot of people get a lot of benefits from carnivore is not just because eating meat, is good for you. It's just also too the fact that you've cut out all the other things that are not good for you, right? So it's a double-edged sword that you can get great results with either way. But yeah, we got a lot of topics here, you guys, by the way. I know that we're kind of this intros forever, but I got like a list of 12 things we're going to talk about. So make sure you stick around all the way to the end. And remember, this is a brand new show. We're on like episode 4 now, I think. So if you got a minute, share this out, comment, let us know what you guys think. And we'll continue to make these episodes here. First things first, I want to do this. Is kind of weird, but it's kind of fun too. I want to see Haley. I want you to tell us, what does old school Haley before the carnivore diet kind of eat at a restaurant, right? Because I think that people need to connect the idea of how much money you actually spend on food when you're not carnivore, right? Because, people throw restaurants in here and there, could be fast food, could be more of a sit down dinner or whatever. And like, that's a pretty normal part of like most people's lives, I would say, to a degree. Maybe there's, some people that don't go out, but everybody goes out at some point in some way or another, or maybe you just got to grab something. And nobody thinks about that as, they swipe the credit card and they say it's good to go, but nobody's factoring that in to like the idea of how much food. Because, I know you eat out here and there now that you're carnivore, but I imagine you eat out far less. And even when you eat out, like you said, it's going to be a far cheaper amount of, in whatever spending that you're going to make. Right. So, yeah. Let's look at this, Haley. Just to give you guys, we're pulling this up in the moment, so we'll see what happens. We got BJ's, okay? BJ's restaurant on here. I feel like BJ's is pretty much in a lot of places. For those of you that don't have a BJ's in your zone, it's basically like what would you call it? American food, Haley? Is that what we would? Yeah, it's like just a pub, everything, brew house, whatever. Like with a huge menu of all of the different things you could want. Huge menu, right? Okay, so let's just be modest here. Let's not be crazy because I know you would. Depending on the day, Haley would go wild. Depending on the season. So, it could have been 3-4 things, but let's just say, let's be modest, right? Anybody going to eat out, you probably want to get some form of an appetizer. So What do you got for me
100%.
in the appetizer world?
So we would always get an appetizer. Big foodies, especially before carnivore.
Yes.
When my husband and I go out to eat, we go out to eat, right? Like we're there to eat. So we would get anywhere from 1 to 3 appetizers. I'm not even kidding you. We have long dinners, right? We're there for like 3 hours. It's an event.
Yeah.
But we're getting some sort of like roll. Like if there's like an avocado roll.
Oh, there is right here. Avocado
roll.
egg roll. Should I click that? All right.
Click it. Click it.
Adding that
Why not?
to your cart. Avocado egg roll. By the way, everybody listening, $15.95. Okay, so keep track of these numbers. $15.95 for the appy. So even if you didn't go get 3 like Haley would, right? If you just get 1, you already got $15.95 for this one meal. This kind of, and it doesn't sound like a lot right now, but it will later. All right, so Haley, now what else? Let's just do one appetizer.
Okay, one appetizer.
I know you can do more.
For dinner, my staple would always be like some sort of like bacon avocado cheeseburger with French fries and a margarita, right? Got to get the marg in there.
Yeah, let me get you a burger. So what kind of burger do you want? Bacon cheeseburger, hickory brisket, bacon burger?
Yes.
Okay.
That
hickory.
one.
Yeah, let's put that in. Okay, adding that in there. It's making me pick. I'm on like Grubhub. I've never. Okay, let's see. All right, I picked you fries. So a burger with fries now.
Yeah.
$18.25, you guys. $18.25. We're getting up there. We're getting up there. Like you can pay rent with this order soon. No, okay. And then you said, did you say was the last thing? A margarita?
Get a marg, and then for dessert we'd always do like a pizookie.
Oh, dessert, I'm in there. Okay, pizookie.
Yeah, gotta get
pizookie one, just one pizookie or the trio.
We would get, I obviously need my own pizookie, Ryan. Jacob would get one, I would get one. Whatever this
strawberry
is.
One in there. Okay, let's throw you strawberry pizookie in there. Okay, $9.25 for that guy. And then now let me find you a margarita. And you guys, we're almost done with this piece, but it's already crazy. It's already crazy to see here.
Yeah.
Where the heck would a margarita be?
Can you Grubhub a marg? I've never used Grubhub before.
I think you can. Yeah. Yeah, I think you can. All right. Well, I'm going to just give you, instead of a marg, because I can't seem to find them, I'm just going to give you a hard cider on here because they got that. Okay. Let's just throw a hard cider in, whatever. $12.50 for a hard cider, you guys. Okay.
Sounds about right.
So this meal, just this, okay, this is one appetizer, an entree, a dessert, and a drink, which would be what anybody would eat probably going out. Because a lot of people, if you're not eating out every day, whatever, you're going to enjoy it when you go, right? And you're going to want to have something like that. This total on Grubhub, granted, right? So maybe fees with that and whatever, $75 for one damn meal.
And you have to think a lot of people use Grubhub. A lot of people use services where you're getting stuff sent to your house, and you have to think when you go carnivore, that alone, the Grubhub service goes away. Yeah. So there you're saving money.
Exactly.
Goes away.
Right? Yeah, the fees on here, the delivery fee. Oh, it says I have to add a tip see if we had a Dasher coming or whatever, or a Grubhub person, I got to add them a tip. I'm not ordering this, by the way, you guys. This is bullshit foods on here, but we're just talking about it for the sake of people out there that if you're not carnivore yet and you're eating stuff like this, right? Or did you factor the 80 that you just dropped on one meal into your budget of saying carnivore is too much? I don't think you did. But also, I looked up metrics too, right, before we got on here because I want to be accurate with this stuff. So it looks like the average American household right now spends $270 to $331 a week on groceries. And that might not be you guys listening. Maybe you're lower, maybe you're higher, whatever. That's average for people. This is not carnivore people, by the way. This is just average for everybody in America out there eating whatever. That's about what they spend on groceries, right? And so that's kind of crazy. And that's new data that just came out in January. I mean, that's pretty wild. So, you start thinking about that, you can definitely fit carnivore stuff in there. And here's how you guys can do it, okay? Let's shift now over to the carnivore ideas, okay? Because, also, let's just reiterate, Haley would never you would never order from BJ's on carnivore diet. It's just not going to happen. No. Yes, they have steaks there, But you're not going to DoorDash yourself a steak. What the hell?
No.
Why would you DoorDash a steak or Grubhub a
No.
steak? You're not going to, there's no point to do that. It's not going to be good. It's going to come in a styrofoam container. You know, it's going to be, and it would be outrageous. It would be ridiculous, you know, price-wise. So you eliminate so many variables. Like it's not even just like, oh yeah, you eat meat and get better. You're going to save money on carnivore diet. Okay. Quote me, people, quote me. I dare you, because you will. And, let's look now. So first things I want to talk about with this, okay, I got a lot of notes, you guys, so stick with us, is that you really want to have some kind of basics established first of how you're going to approach the diet, okay? And we've talked a lot about this on other shows, calories, macros, and things like that on previous episodes. So if you don't understand that piece yet, go listen to that, because, you know, we do believe that carnivores should be following, for the most part, some form of macros goals, meaning they got to have a protein goal, a fat goal, and they should be trying to hit that. And so this kind of does come into that in play of figuring out how you're going to approach the diet for the most, you know, budget, basically, how you're going to get the best budget out of a carnivore diet. And one of those things does come down to understanding your macros and your calories and so on and so forth, because one of the steps I think you have to take is you got to figure out how many times a day you're going to eat. Okay. So Haley, you can attest to this, I'm sure. You kind of did a little bit, but let's just go back. Let's flash back to Haley before she was carnivore. You know, I know you were eating probably 4, 5, maybe 6 times a day. Okay. Hitting your macros, proteins, carbs, fats, eating whatever you wanted to fit those goals, still doing the tracking, but probably eating 4, 5, 6 times a day. Is that right?
Absolutely. Yes.
Yeah. Sure. So Haley's out there eating 4, 5, 6 times a day, whatever. Sometimes maybe a 7th. Sometimes who knows? You know, people out there eating a lot. People eat a lot more than they understand, right? But when you go carnivore, what ends up happening to a lot of people, especially after you get through the adaptation phase and you're in the zone with that, is you start to get, your hunger signals balance out a lot. Like you're not as hungry all the time. And when you do eat, you get much more satiated from it. And, you know, you start to honestly default to eating less. Even if you tried to start carnivore eating 5, 6 times a day, you'll notice that you end up eating less over time. And this actually has been Haley's experience, as well as many of the other carnivores that I coach or Haley coaches. You know, you may start with a lot of meals and you work your way down. Like Haley's down to 2 meals a day right now. And a lot of carnivores will eat 2 meals. You know, could be 1 meal. Some people get to the point where they're on 1 meal very effortlessly and very easily. And that might sound crazy to you right now if you've never experienced that, but it's probably because, again, you're eating a lot of things that are not necessarily giving you the nutrients you need. When you get the nutrients you need from the meat or from the eggs or from, you know, the carnivore stuff, your body says, hey, we're good. You don't need to eat 6 times a day. Like, you know, a lot of the diets that you have to eat that much, right? Like there's a lot of diets that are higher in the carbs and everything else, and their dietary types of diets out there. And you like every hour and a half, you start to feel like you need to eat, right? Like literally every hour and a half, you're like, dang, I got to eat. And it's because your body is eating, but it says, where the hell is the nutrients? Where's all the good stuff we need? And you're not really getting it, right? So just by figuring out how many meals a day you're going to eat and committing to that, you're going to already have now saved yourself some money, because you're not going to go eat a ribeye 5 times a day. Okay. No. And if you did do that, you'd be making a mistake in the wallet department. We know that, but also probably way overkill on what you would need for a carnivore diet anyway. So eliminate that thought right at the gate. You don't have to be eating 5, 6 times a day. You can easily eat 1 time a day, 2 times a day, maybe 3, and you're going to already be saving a ton more money there because you're not having those extra meals, right?
Yeah. Well, and when you go down to, when you switch even just to carnivore alone, think about all the places you eat out at now, right? Like you're going to Starbucks, you're getting your Frappuccino and your lemon loaf in the morning, and then you're going to work. And then a few, hours later, you're starving because that has no substance. You're getting whatever else. When you're carnivore, you're not getting food at Starbucks. It cancels out almost essentially. I mean, you can get meat at essentially any restaurant, right? So like in a bind, you can go somewhere and get meat, but it cancels out all of the other garbage everywhere, right? Like I'm not like out and about and like, oh, wow, I'm craving a cookie. Let's go to Crumble. You know what I mean? Yeah. And also I think it's hard for people to imagine doing this diet because they have such extreme cravings, but what they don't realize is your body craves what you give it, right? So when I crave something, it's like, oh my gosh, I want a bowl of ground beef. but I don't want somebody else to make my meat, because you get to the point where you're so good at cooking your own food that you'll go to a restaurant and you'll order it and you're like, wow, this steak sucks.
Yeah.
Like you guys butchered it.
Let me talk to
like,
that guy.
Yeah. Like
right?
Who made this meal? So even when you think about that, like I talk to so many people who are like, my biggest issue is eating out. My biggest issue is XYZ. I have no self-control. When I go to Chick-fil-A, I always have to get a shake. And it's like automatically by committing to carnivore, even for any window of time to experiment, you're cutting out all of it, right? Like so many people are like, oh, I just wish I could, we'll buy all my groceries and then we still Grubhub in, or I'll still just make a frozen pizza, right? Like all of that goes away. And people don't think about that. Is all they think about is the price tag on like a prime rib, which, let's be real, you're not buying that. You're going to get ground beef. You're going to get eggs. There are all these other things that are cheaper.
Yep.
And that's going to be what you're eating. And that's all they think about is they're like, oh, well, I can't afford to have a ribeye every day. And it's like, nobody's telling you that you have to do the diet that way, right. But by eating animal meats and cooking from home, you save so much money because you cut literally everything else out of your diet. Yeah, and it's just, it's crazy because we saved so much money by me switching to the diet, because I was no longer like, oh yeah, I stopped for this, or we decided to go out to eat. Like we're cooking everything now. And that in itself saves a ton of money.
It totally does, and for those of you out there too, if you got a budget for your food, you got something you stick to, which some people do, right? Some people have a very like, oh, I spend this amount, right? We talked about the average American family spending XYZ. So a lot of people follow a specific budget, right? So if you know your budget for your groceries, go fit that to a carnivore diet. It's not, crazy, right? Like first thing, understand how many meals you want to have. And then you say, okay, well, I'm gonna have 2 meals a day. It sounds good, whatever. Coach Rye and Haley say it's gonna work for me. So I'm gonna have 2 meals a day. And I'm gonna go ahead and now figure out what I'm gonna eat that's gonna fit my budget for 2 meals a day times 7. Well, okay, big deal. Easy stuff, right? A lot of it is the planning ahead. If you don't do the planning ahead, you don't plan in advance, then you end up making mistakes, right? Because I know for sure, beginner carnivores, one of the biggest mistakes you make is you're like, oh, I don't know what to eat. I'm carnivore now, though. I'm going to try it. I'm doing the experiment. And then you go to the store and you're like, I'm going to buy everything that has meat in it. I'm going to buy all the meat. And you end up coming back with so much more meat than you don't need. You're going to throw that shit away or have to freeze it or something, because realistically, you're going out into this idea wrong, because you're thinking your hunger signals and everything else are going to be similar to how they've been not carnivore. When you start eating the meat, you won't see that. That's how you get to the 1 meal a day or the 2 meals a day that feel just fine. Nobody's suffering doing that. Otherwise they would just eat more, right? Like it's not like, oh, well, you have to do it because of this. It's really that you just don't need to, because you're getting all the nutrients you get and your body says, hey, we're good. We don't need to eat. Don't overfeed us, right? So literally too, if you sit down and you plan in advance, you say, okay, I want to figure out my meal frequency. I want to figure out my budget that I want to spend on this. And then I'm going to plan it all out. So I got my groceries. Now it's time to shop. Right. And this is where, again, I think we can go into a lot more specific hacks. So you guys, if you've made it this far, I know that I should have been way further on this list here, but we appreciate it. Make sure you subscribe and you're hanging out. Give us a thumbs up. Let's teach the algorithm a little bit about carnivore. Okay. So specific hacks that I think, and this is like 12 points. So we'll try to get through these pretty quick, but stick with us. Is to go to stores that have better prices. Okay. So right out the gate, I can tell you guys this, and Haley, I know you can talk on this too. Costco, Sam's Club, or other types of, the quote unquote budget stores. I don't know. They're different everywhere, but everybody's got those things like the bargain outlets or whatever they're called, Yeah. Those right away, instant savings. And you might say, oh, I got to get a Costco membership. Okay, but what is it? Like, it's like $100 a year or something. I don't even know what it is, but it is not that much to be able to go in there and save hundreds of dollars right on the meat, right out the gate, right? Like, I know, Haley, you get a lot of your meat from like your family and things like that, but you also go where? Where do you shop?
I also go to the farmers markets. So I'm blessed to have cattle ranchers in the family. We buy our steers from family. But if let's say like we're not butchering, then we do have to get our meat from other places. And I've actually surprisingly found tremendous luck at farmers markets, which they're open everywhere right now. Yeah. There are going to be meat kiosks, multiple meat kiosks. Go talk to them, ask them about their pricing, be like, how much is, a pound of ground beef with you guys, and go around and talk to people. And then, if you find somebody who's cheaper, ask them like, why is this so affordable? What is the difference? Why? And for me, I found someone who sold me 10 pounds of ground beef at $5 a pound on Saturday. This was very recently. And she was like, we butcher 4 steers a month. And so we have more affordable pricing. This just works really well for us. We found we made a bigger profit by selling a higher quantity because people want to buy from us. And I'm like, wow, that makes a lot of sense. There's no, the quality is extremely good. And now I have somebody that I go to every Saturday, and I'm able to buy an insane amount of meat for literally nothing compared to like anywhere I've ever bought it before. And so you just have to do, and farmers markets are fun. Make it a day with your family, make it a day with your girlfriends, go get a fun you know what I mean? Like you can go and they're just fun to walk around, but just talk to the meat vendors, like ask people about their pricing, see what they offer. And that's been a huge, game changer for us because we found somebody who's willing to sell meat at a very affordable price and it's very high quality.
Yeah, for sure. And, aside from that, even the grocery stores, like I mentioned, for those of you that don't have the farmer's market or whatever, I mean, Haley's out in the middle of the sticks, people. No, I'm just kidding. But, they Colorado. Are everywhere. They really are everywhere, right? Like you can go and, yes, it's one of those things where whatever, but you can also get it at the store too. You can get it at the store. Just pick better stores. Cause I'll tell you what, you guys, like where I am at, when I go to the store, if I always just look at steaks and stuff for fun. Cause I'm like, I want to see what kind of stuff they're running around here. Cause I know that a lot of it, I get impressed with how bad some of the quality of meat is at some places. So I'm like, damn, this place is crazy. But anyway, I'll look at some ribeyes and things like that, and they're like $33 a pound. I'm like, okay, that's up there. Go to Costco, it's like $13, you guys. So yeah, we're talking about double the price for driving to a different store. And yes, you got to have a membership at Costco and Sam's. I'm not sponsored by Costco and Sam's, but I'm telling you, get the damn membership, you guys. Yeah, get the membership then. Save yourself all that money. It pays for itself to be able to do that. And any meat that you can eat is going to be better than no meat. So why wouldn't you just go get the meat that's inherently already cheaper? Okay. And that's shop around. If you go carnivore, you're doing a carnivore experiment, go check out the prices at all of your stores. Make it a goal every week. You go to a different store and check out the prices, see where, and then find your place, find what that's going to be. Haley found the farmer's market by, chance, probably. I wouldn't say she probably went and was like, I gotta go find ground beef at the farmer's market, but it ends up happening because you're out there looking, right? You're out there experiencing it. And so that's the first step. First and foremost, find your location, your store. Step 2, okay, this is another one. We talked about ribeyes like 50 times. You can tell what we be eating, right? But the truth is, you don't have to eat just a ribeye to be a carnivore, okay? Everybody thinks you got to do that, right? Like everybody's all about the ribeye or the filet mignon or all this. You don't need all these expensive cuts to be carnivore, okay? You can buy cheap cuts of meat, the cheapest cuts of meat, and you can still be carnivore, right? You can still do that, and you can still get the benefits of the diet, still get the results, and still do it in a big way. So, some of those cuts, like you've mentioned a few of them, Haley, would be like ground beef, chuck roast, short ribs, there's stew meat. What else is there? You got any off the top of your head, Haley?
I mean, those are the big ones. And what's crazy too is it's like, I think people think because they're cheaper, they're like lesser. Yeah. It's like a lesser quality or a lesser. Chuck roast is delicious. I mean, you just go Google best chuck roast carnivore recipe. There are so many. You could literally just type in carnivore chuck roast recipe and it will come up with carnivore recipes that are absolutely delicious. Like we made chuck roast. We fried it up the other day and I was like, wow, this tastes like a ribeye. And so you can, or, we had talked about you can even buy leaner cuts of meat and then just cook it in beef tallow.
Yeah, that's exactly, and see,
which is a great hack.
Because that's what people worry about. They worry about, oh, well, I go get the London broil or the top round or whatever, and it's not as lean. And so now I'm going to have the problem, right? Because a lot of carnivore community talks about that. Like, oh, if you don't have the fats, you're done. Blah, blah, blah. Well, you know what? Add the fats to leaner cuts of meat then. If that's what's within your budget, doesn't matter. You don't need to go out there and find a way to pay for the ribeye if you don't want to pay for the ribeye. Yeah. Buy the ground beef, right? You can buy fattier ground beef. You can get it made from you could get somebody else to make, you can do this stuff where you get these and you add fats to it, add butter to it, add beef tallow to it, do these things where now you're in the spot where you're getting the cheapest cut of meat and you're making it fatty enough to work for your goals. And that is, again, in the beginning phases, not things you even need to worry about that much too. Just get the meat in, figure out how to eat more meat and get used to that and get used to the idea. And ground beef is, I think, the simplest one. I mean, ground beef, I actually looked it up, right? Hold on a sec. National average ground beef retail price is $4.33 a pound, right? So that's for
nuts.
like ground beef wherever. I think it's somewhere around that at my Costco. I don't know. I don't eat ground beef. I don't personally like it. Obviously, you said you were getting at a farmer's market, which is higher quality for somewhere around there. And then, you know, so this is an average, and you'll see differences, right? Like I've seen ground beef at like $10 and things like that. But I mean, again, shop around, figure out where you want to buy. But, you know, you could do 100% ground beef carnivore diet. This is what people don't think about. You could just eat ground beef twice a day. You could eat a pound of ground beef twice a day. And if that's your macros, that fits your goals, you're done. Carnivore diet is complete, right? So feasibly, that equates to how much? That's like $10. And $10 a day, you could eat the carnivore diet. Or you could eat Haley's Feast from BJ's, which is $80. Okay, you got it, you know, right?
For one meal. For one meal. That's
and this is a whole
one
day.
meal.
And if you had like real strict, you're like, yeah, you know what? I want to do carnivore because I have to for XYZ reason. I want it to work for me. I want to see that. Then you know what? You don't need fancy stuff in your diet. You don't need the T-bones. You don't need the ribeyes. You don't need the porterhouses. You don't need all this fancy meat. You just go get the ground beef then. Eat that twice a day. Eat that for 7 days. $10 a day, right?
Well, and the massive, I mean, they have those massive cartons of eggs where you get the like racks of eggs for however much. I don't even know how much those are because we have chickens, but you buy that and then you go buy all your ground beef. And literally eggs and ground beef, for me, is a very elite meal. Like that is delicious. If you want, throw some cheese in there, butter. Like that is a delicious, satiating, amazing meal. And both of those two things, eggs and ground beef, are very cheap, very delicious, very nutrient dense.
Boom.
Amazing meals.
Done. So good. And you know, I don't have the eggs price, but if you did straight, you know, like we said, 2 times a day ground beef, whatever, and you could do that for 7 days because you want to be the carnivore diet and see what happens. That's 70. We're talking about like $10 a day-ish, $70 a week for your grocery bill. When we're talking about $270, $330 is the average in the States. I mean, come on, guys. Again, I mean, that's a little extreme, but you know what? That's a lot of room between for if you want to have other things. You want to fit some other meats in there, right? And like you said, eggs is huge. People don't factor that in. If you're on 2 meals a day, one of your meals could be eggs and bacon. Another one could then be a pound of beef or whatever it is that you're going to have, right? And you're done. Again, like you're going to eat far less on the carnivore diet than you think because you're actually getting nutrients out of what you're eating. You're getting all the things you need out of the meat, and your body will notice that, and it will tell you. You will not be as hungry. You will not feel as hungry, right? Like you will, like Haley of all people, right? We're talking about 5, 6, 7, 8 meals, whatever she used to be on. Haley in last prep, I'll tell you guys, I'll be honest. Haley last prep always telling me she was so hungry every freaking day. Like, hey, you know what? I'm starving. Is it cheat day? Can I do this and that? What am I doing? Haley hasn't done that this whole damn prep yet. I mean, she said she's been hungry here and there, but you know, we're dieting. We're doing a specific thing. She's a bodybuilder. Keep that in mind. But she ain't coming at me every day. And I imagine there's not every hour of your day you're like, I got to eat tomorrow. I can't wait. I'm going to count. Oh, it's 59 minutes remaining, you know?
In terms of fullness and being satiated, it doesn't even feel like prep.
Right.
Like normally you're really, a common sign of a bodybuilding prep is hunger and extreme hunger and extreme discomfort. Because once again, you're dieting to unnaturally low body fat. You know, it's not normal. You have to push your body to uncomfortable places. Your body is trying to survive. It's like, why aren't we eating, right? So it makes sense that you would feel like you're starving to death, even though that's dramatic, right? But a lot of bodybuilding people can relate to that feeling. And being on the carnivore diet, it's like, wow, I'm eating low calories, right? For the average person, I would say my calories are pretty similar to what they were last prep. So it's not like they're way, drastically different from each other. I wasn't eating way less last prep, but I am very satisfied. Like I feel on a whole a lot better. I feel healthier. It's just all around better. The foods are better. I'm more excited for my meals. I'm not like choking down plain chicken and having to slather it in mustard because it tastes so awful. My meals are easy, delicious, filling. It's easy.
Yes, and that goes back to the other piece that we were talking about too. Is like you don't realize, you guys, if you're eating higher calories, but half of it is this kind of junk foods and, processed foods and things that don't contain these nutrients, you have to almost think that half of your diet is not actually feeding your body at all. So again, like the beneficial pieces of your diet often are going to be around the animal foods in a way, right? Like it's going to be the meat and the eggs and the things like this. So yes, everybody has some of those in their diet, a lot of them, unless you're a vegan or something like that, or a vegetarian. But even then you have your staples that get you through your diet, and so does everybody else. However, when you eliminate all the anti things out of your diet, right? Now you're focusing your whole diet on getting those high quality nutrient dense foods. It's a game changer for how you feel and how much your body's actually like. You could eat half the calories, but eat certain foods and get way more nutrients, way more beneficial things out of your diet. So that's another thing to factor. Another point, because we're still rolling. Okay.
We're rolling.
This one I like because anytime I eat meat, I do not do this, but everybody thinks for some reason you got to buy prime this, prime that, prime meat, prime steak. Why? I don't know. I don't know if you do that, Haley, but like I just buy choice. I don't give, I don't give two shits about what the quality of the grade of the meat is, in my opinion. Like I'd rather get the price because it all tastes good to me. So I mean, everybody thinking you got to go get a prime ribeye, you got to get a prime New York strip, well, the prime meat already costs like $5-10 a pound more. So why? Right?
Well, and I think I don't know why they get hung up on that either, because it's like choice is still better than your Frappuccino. Yeah. You know what I mean? Eating a steak is still going to beat out a crumble cookie. Eating a steak is still going to beat out, whatever garbage you're eating now, which if you do not follow a diet and you're just eating to your fancy, you are eating that stuff. I would bet money that like somebody feels personally attacked listening to this by how many times I've called out Frappuccinos in those like lemon loaves, right? Because it's a popular thing that people do, but you have to think like, oh yeah, I know I need to get a prime rib. It's like, no, you don't. Like just eating any meat, it's still going to be healthier than that Frappuccino, right? Like 100%. Any meat, like anything is still going to be better than the garbage you've been filling your body with, 90% of the time.
Yeah. And so, not getting the top grade, which is the prime beef, go get something else. Get a choice. Get select even. Get whatever. Again, you can always add fat to it because that's all we're talking about with these differences. Fattier cut is prime versus choice. Okay, what? Who cares? I mean, honestly, I don't even like prime beef myself. I mean, I try it. I'm like, no, get away from me. I like the more, just leaner, muscled taste to it. But the point is, again, it's cheaper. It's $10-15 cheaper. I look at the prime, like even at Costco, since I've used them in this podcast today, but like their prime ribeye or their prime, New York strip or their prime whatever, it's 10, 15, 20 sometimes dollars more a pound, which is ridiculous for basically the same thing, just because it has a little less fat in it. Okay, well, you know what I got? Beef tallow, and I'll throw that right on top, okay? End of the story. So again, another way you can just add some fat to other meats, and it's going to work for you, okay? The other thing that I was going to bring up with this, in the same kind of vein, is the kind of debate about grass-fed versus grain-fed. And this is a really big one in the carnivore community because you do see a lot of people that are like, has to be ground, has to be grass-fed, ground beef, whatever. It's all got to be grass-fed, grass-fed, grass-fed. Well, grass-fed stuff is not even on the scope of any pricing we've talked about. Okay, grass-fed is going to be much, much higher in price. However, Haley, I want to know your opinion on this, right? What do you think about the grass-fed versus grain-fed thing?
So for me, because I'm fortunate enough to live in like a farming state and I'm buying from like the people who are butchering their own steers, it's like, some of them, they're like, oh, we're all grain-fed. Some of them are like, we're grass-fed, grain-finished, which means like the last few months of their life, they're eating a certain way, right? So there's all this science that goes into it and how people are like finishing off their beef for certain flavors. For me personally, in my opinion, I think it's being nitpicky. I think people are nitpicking, and I think it's overcomplicating a very simple diet. And I think that it makes people feel like, oh, well, if I don't eat grass-fed, I'm not getting any of the health benefits, which once again, a grain-fed steak is still healthier than your Frappuccino or your bowl of pasta or your whatever, right? Pizza. It's still going to be way better for you. Yeah. And honestly, sometimes I think it comes down to personal preference. Like I've met carnivores who are long-standing carnivores and they're like, I don't even like the taste of grass-fed meat. They're like, I only buy grain finished or grain-fed meat. It really, I think it comes down to preference. I think the deeper you get into the diet, you'll discover how certain meats make you feel. But I think that at the beginning I think you're overcomplicating something so simple. Just go to the store, find the meat that fits your price tag, and already switching to any kind of meat is going to be so much better for you than what you're doing now. Guaranteed. Buying a grain meat is going to be better for you than that frozen pizza, right? Yep. And that's just what you need to remind yourself. Remind yourself of what am I eating now, and going to a real whole food is better than that frozen pizza or that bag of candy or your pint of ice cream every night, right? Because this is the reality of what like a good chunk of people are doing weekly, if not daily or every other day, you know?
Yeah. 100%. And it's one of those things, again, where it does become, you know, when you're a very established carnivore, you can, of course, play with those things easily because you already have the groove down of the diet. You already know how to do it. You're already not struggling with the cravings anymore. You're not struggling with figuring it out. You found, you know, maybe all of the pieces we talked about. You found your place to buy your meat. You found what you like. You found how it fits you. You know, you're doing all that. Then, you know what? Go ahead, play with it. Test out some grass-fed. If you found that, hey, you know what? I'm spending X amount. I want to try to eat some grass-fed meat, and I don't care that it's going to cost me more because maybe there's another little bit of that benefit I'll get it from it, then that's your own decision. But if you're trying to figure this out for your budget, you know what? Like, I'll tell you what, guys, the research does not show that there's any difference between these two things. Because, again, like, you know, you're talking about even the cows that, you know, come from feedlots, whatever, they are still, most of their diet is grass-fed. Like, most of their diet comes from the field, right? And then they get finished in these other areas at the feedlots and things where that's, you know, the end of this journey. And also, let's also talk about lion diet for 2 seconds. One of the reasons lion diet works so well is because of the ruminant factor and the factor that, you know, a lot of the stuff that the animal eats in this instance, whether it be beef or lamb in that situation, you know, they are going to basically nix most of what they're eating out of the meat. That's why it's one of the beneficial things of lion diet through the ruminant, you guys. So like, you know, this is the thing where, again, how much of that is even getting into the meat there, right? And you'll hear too, a lot of people don't notice any difference when they shift back and forth between grass-fed and grain-fed. They're not like, it's not like you eat a grass-fed steak and you're like, wow, all of a sudden I'm Superman. No, it doesn't happen. Nothing's, it's the same. It feels the same, right?
It is the same. And I do think I think it's one way that some people, you know, maybe even like carnivore purists, they overcomplicate that. I got in an argument on Instagram with this like purist carnivore who was like, how dare you? Somebody asked me a question on my thing and I answered it. And they were like, I was like, I don't think it matters what kind of beef you're buying. I think, you know, you buy what you can afford and it's better than what you're doing now. And he was in an uproar. He was like, how dare you tell somebody that they can have grain finished meat when X, Y, Z. And I'm like, you have to think about, one, I disagreed with him completely, right? But two, you also have to think about the diet that you're coming from. And just, I mean, I feel like I could say this a million times in a row, how much better just switching to carnivore, which is a whole foods, natural, nutrient dense diet is, right? So don't get caught up in the logistics of like, oh, I need to buy a certain kind of beef. Honestly, like an uncured hot dog is going to be better for you than freaking a frozen pizza, right? Like you're going to get more nutrients from a hot dog than you are a lean cuisine or something like that. You know what I mean? Like, and so I think people just get really nitpicky when and it demonizes and alienates people from even starting the diet because they think it has to be this ultra complicated thing. And it's like, no, just take your budget, go to the store, find the cheapest meat, buy that, eat that for a week and see how you feel. See if you feel any better, you know, see if you notice any changes. And I have yet to meet somebody who's done that and hasn't felt better from it.
Right. And that's the whole problem with a lot of the carnivore community, as I always talk about, right, is a lot of people are pushing people away because once you get into the diet, you obviously get the benefits, you feel the benefits, and you become very very excited about them, and you're like, oh, everybody
Yeah.
must do this, everything must do this.
Yeah.
But you forget what it's like to be the everyday person that has no concept of this. And so when you come out and you say it has to be grass-fed, you know what, maybe grass-fed is better. Maybe it is. I mean, I don't know. I haven't seen anything that tells me it is 100%. I don't think anybody has that answer, but you know, maybe it comes out in 5-10 years. Okay, well, great. Somebody can figure that out and make that decision themselves if they want to or not. You know, people do things every single day that are killing them in one way or another, right? Like drugs, drinking, alcohol, smoking, you know, eating bullshit food every day of your life. These things are killing you. And so you can easily make a decision, you know, either way when you got the facts, but either way, if you never start, you can never make a decision, right? So if we're talking about a grain-fed versus grass-fed, and you're talking about a budget and making sure you can do carnivore, do not look at grass-fed then. Go look at the grain-fed. Go get the cheapest cuts of any meat that you can find and eat that and see how you feel. You will get the benefits either way. And if there is a little bit of benefit from doing the grass-fed or not, or even a lot of it, you can figure that out later and make that change. But if you never get started, you'll never be in that spot anyway. So it's kind of like, you know, all mute. And that's, you know, to the next point, I think. The next point, eat other cuts of meat that are not just steak. If you look at the steaks, and I don't know what kind of budget you got out there, maybe, you know, I've had variances of budgets in my life. Like I've had times when I looked at my bank and I had $9 in the bank. Okay. And you know what I ate back then? You know what? This is actually great. Wasn't, you know, carnivore, quote unquote, but I was eating eggs and bacon literally 3-4 times a day. That's what I ate back in those days when I was broke as shit, had literally no money. Half the time I look at my bank and it was deficit. I was like, damn it, what do I do next? I was going to buy the flats of eggs like Haley was talking about, buying, you know, the 5 dozen eggs, and then I would get the bacon. I would get the cheapest bacon I could eat, and I would eat that on repeat. I used to call it the farmhouse feast because occasionally I would throw cottage cheese in the mix if I could afford that. So I'd eat cottage cheese, bacon, and eggs, and I would eat that on and on and on. And you know what? No, I was not thinking about steaks. Why would I think about steaks when I got $9 in the bank to my whole name? You know, I'm thinking about everything else. But you know what I did? It wasn't carnivore. I was not trying to do carnivore. I was just eating the way I wanted to eat. But the point is, I was still doing it. And you could do that today. Somebody out there could go get, you know, the 5 dozen eggs, and they could get the bacon, and you could just repeat that. You could literally just eat eggs all day if you wanted to, and that's fine.
And there's so, like, the internet, like, just Google, like, find your meat and then Google recipes after. There are so many. You literally could just be like, go Google carnivore chuck roast recipe. And you know what it's going to come up with? 10 different options for you to choose from. And if you're sick of eating eggs, put those eggs in like a mini waffle maker, and just changing the way they look and the texture, that alone makes a huge difference. Like, there's so much room for creativity in this diet that I think that people don't even realize. Like, there are recipes, there are tons of ways to play around with food and make it exciting and affordable. You just have to, like, get creative and look it up. And obviously when you're not used to doing those things, it seems daunting. But the second you Google your first carnivore recipe and you realize how easy it is, and then how easy these freaking recipes are, because you don't have 100 ingredients and the food is delicious, then you're hooked, and then it's easy. And you're all of a sudden you're like, wow, I don't know why I put this off for so long.
Yeah, exactly. And, you know, the other thing too is you're not reinventing the wheel out here, folks. There is a lot of people doing carnivore now. Like back when I'm talking about the time when I was eating, you know, eggs and bacon all day on repeat, there was no such thing as a carnivore diet back then, right? There would be people maybe around the world that were doing variances of whatever, because obviously we know there's some people that have been carnivore long term, but it wasn't called carnivore and nobody was doing it. And Sean Baker hadn't wrote the book yet. None of that had happened back when I was doing that stuff. You know what I'm saying? But still, the point of the matter becomes, you have to be able to figure out what's going to work for you in your budget, in your realm, with your food choices, and whatever that is. There is no right or wrong there, unless, you know, you're not doing the carnivore diet in that sense. You're not, you know, it's going to be wrong to continue to eat the dozen donuts for breakfast and to eat the pizza every day and to do the things that have got you into the spot that you don't feel good, or, you know, whatever's going on, or you have health issues or mental issues or weight problems or whatever it is that has brought you to even consider this. The last thing you want want to do is find a way out of that. The last thing you want to do is find an excuse not to do it. And that's exactly why we've done this entire episode, because one of the biggest ones people will make is about the money. But I think we've really proven here, like, not only can you at least break even and spend the same money you would on your groceries, you know, doing carnivore, you definitely can far underspend what you've probably been spending on your everyday budget, on your everyday diet, on your everyday lifestyle by switching to a carnivore diet. So, I mean, again, it becomes the fact where if you've listened to 4 episodes of us and you have not done the carnivore experiment yet, it is time for you to click the button. It is time for you to give it a shot. Go start and figure this out and see what you got. Still a couple more tips, though. Don't click out just yet, you guys. We're all over the place. One that I really like, for this one might be a little bit more established for my established carnivores listening. If you guys have been out here and you're still trying to find ways to cut money, because, like, who doesn't like saving some money here and there? And if you already know, you know, you're going to be eating steak, whatever, figure out how to get that. One of the things you can do is you can buy the whole primal cut, right? You can buy like an entire ribeye roast, like just that giant, like CVAC. And this is, I know what this is because I've talked to the butchers at my Sam's Club and my Costco. I have to ask them for it. Is specifically, some places have it just out, like restaurant stores especially. You can just buy like a whole thing of ribeye or whole thing in New York strip. Yeah. And it's like the giant, massive 30-pound, 30-pound thing that you got to get. But like, you can cut your own steaks, you guys. Get yourself a knife, get yourself one of these, cut them out however you like. And I actually kind of like that because you can cut them the way you want, right? Whenever you get steaks that are already prepackaged at the deli or whatever, you're basically going to get, you know, whatever that butcher cut. And I've seen that a lot. Like, some of them are thinner, some of them are like way thicker. And you're like, what's going on here? No consistency back here, but whatever. You know, when you get the whole thing, you got the whole primal cut it off yourself. And you can cut it to whatever thickness you want. And I like to do that too, because, you know, maybe for breakfast, you don't want as big. I don't know. You know, everybody's got their own way of doing it, but that's just another way you can save money, because those are always much less priced. Like, you're going to see, you know, reduction $3, $4, sometimes $5 a pound, depending where you're getting that, just because it's not cut for you. So that's one way.
And once again, you can go on YouTube and Google how do I cut up this chunk of meat? Teach yourself a new skill. Boom. You know what I mean? Like, branch out, learn a new skill, talk to your butcher, ask him how he does it. I mean, every butcher I've ever talked to has been crazy nice, more than willing to share tips and ideas and tricks.
Because they eat a lot of steak.
So they're excited. It's like their life, you know? And so be willing to learn and try something new. And who knows, you might love it. You might be like, wow, I'm never buying a prepackaged steak again. Right. You know, I'm forever going to buy it this way. You know what I mean? And so that is definitely an option and something that we've done before in the past too.
Yeah. And again, like I was saying, don't reinvent the wheel, you guys. There's a lot of people doing carnivore. There's a lot of people who already solved the problems. There's people like me and Haley here telling you guys, hopefully, things that are beneficial to you that you may have not had the answer to, you know? So that's everywhere. Learn more, absorb more, listen to this podcast, listen to every podcast, listen to, you know, read a freaking book, people. Go read a book. There's books about carnivore, you know? And if there's not the stuff about carnivore, because a lot of people say that, right? Like, there's not enough carnivore things. Go look at anything about keto. Anything about keto, right? And you can even look up keto recipes and you can remove certain things and now they become carnivore, right? But keto and carnivore is just a more extreme, more advanced, if you will, version of keto. It is the same exact principles. It's the same thing. It's just like the upper echelon of advanced keto at that point when you're doing carnivore.
The difference between keto and carnivore is literally 10 to 20 grams of carbs, and that's it.
Yeah.
That's it. Yeah. Carnivore has 0 carbs and keto has like maybe max 20.
Yeah.
That's it. Those are the only difference.
Yeah. Anytime that you are out there and you wonder like, oh, I can't find this about carnivore, look up a keto thing, read about keto, learn more about keto. It's going to be basically the same stuff, you know? And that's really how you're going to find it. So I think we've covered, let's see, let me check my list because we've been going a while.
I know. Have we covered all of our things?
I mean, we definitely went way out of order. Oh, last one. Yes, this last one. Because I think we did cover everything else aside from this. Keep an eye out for sales, you guys. Get yourself a freezer. Everybody's got a freezer, but if you need to get an extra one, get one, right? Like you go to Craigslist, I don't know. You get I see freezers
Facebook
for like
Marketplace.
Yeah, I see freezer for like $50 sometimes, or even new ones. They're like a couple $100, okay? If you know you're gonna be eating a lot of meat for a long time, Okay, the sales themselves will save you money. And what I mean by the sales is like, you get the ads from your grocery store or whatever, or Costco. I was telling Haley before we did this, I went to Costco once and they were trying to blow out a bunch of ribeye that was about to go bad. And it was like $5 a pound. It was insane. That's ground beef price for ribeye.
Yeah.
And like I had just happened to get there and I was like, what's going on here? The steak's being overrun. And it was because everybody was getting all these ribeyes, right? And so I was able to get... But like, granted, Costco doesn't tell people when they do that, but other stores do. They'll be like, hey, we're selling a bunch of this today. Come on and get it. Come on and buy it, right?
Well, and once again, it's like, ask your butcher, when are your sales? Like when I have asked mine, they've been like, oh, Tuesdays and Thursdays are our sales on XYZ. Boom. Monday and Wednesdays, there's usually a schedule because of when they get their orders in, when they need stuff to be gone by. And it's not because the stuff is bad. It's because the next shipment is in and they have to push it, right? Yep. So it's like when steak is on sale, it's not necessarily because the steak is old or it's gone bad or anything like that. Yep. It could literally be because they just got a new shipment and they need it gone. They need the space, right? So just ask. I think a big part of a lot of this is that, one, it's new, so people are afraid of it. But then two, people aren't used to asking questions. And I've found so many life hacks by just being like, oh, when are the sales? What days do you sell XYZ? What days do you get XYZ? Call. You don't even have to go in. Call your butcher and ask them these questions if you're too shy to talk to somebody in person. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. And the thing with that becomes, again, sometimes, hey, you know what? I'm no stranger to even buying the meat that says, hey, it's bad. It's going bad, right? Like I've seen that. I tell you what, I had a barbecue once where, Snake River Farms, that meat is generally pretty high priced, and they had ground beef, which is, like way better percentage wise. I think it's like 60-40 or something, like a certain cut of their ground beef. And it was like going to expire in 3 days and it had 50% off stickers on it. I'm like, what? This is the best day of my life because this thing's normally $15 a pound. I just got it for $6. You know what I mean? Like, come on. And I bought like 7 of them, right? But there's nothing wrong with that now. No store's gonna leave meat that is bad up for people to buy. I mean, unless you go into some really weird, sketchy place, right? I mean, for the most part.
And I will say, I think people get really creeped out by meat and like meat going bad or meat making people sick. I feel like anytime I see a recall, it's always like the frozen fruit or some vegetable that has E. coli because of the way they packaged it. Yeah. You can tell if meat is bad, you guys. That is sour. That smells bad. If you can smell it and it just smells like meat, it's fine. Yeah. But if it is bad, you will know instantly. There's no questioning. I don't think I've ever seen, I'm sure there have been, but I don't think I've ever seen a recall on beef. It's always like the lettuce or the, grapefruit or something happened that was giving people E. coli and hospitalizing people. I don't think I've ever seen it really with meat, unless if it's at like some specific restaurant where somebody ate like bad oysters. But once again, we're not talking about restaurants and oysters. We're talking about grocery stores and beef, right?
And it is the responsibility of the people that work at the grocery store to go remove anything that's going to be bad, right? And that's why, again, you get these sales where sometimes these sales come up where because it is going to go bad, but it's not bad yet, which is why if you have a freezer, you go get it. You take that ground beef like I did that day. So I blew that out. I cooked like 5 pounds of that for a barbecue. Okay, nothing happened. Yeah. You know what? Bunch of people ate it. Nobody's dead. Okay, so it's just fine. But had I not done that and I still wanted to get those deals, I would have just bought that, thrown them in the freezer. Done. Yeah. Now it's good to go. Thaw it, eat it that next day. Nothing has to sit in your fridge. You could buy any types of meat and just seal it up, freeze it, and pull it whenever. And that's why, again, even if you get the deals, like I know for example, out of the steak realm. But like, around holidays, turkeys and things like that, they always have crazy deals on turkeys. I've seen it where like, oh, Thanksgiving's over and they have 400 turkeys in the back and they're like, buy one, get one for free, whatever. Yeah. Okay, great. Go get yourself some turkeys, stock them up, freeze them, save them, thaw them, eat them, right? Like that's the bottom line.
And they can stay frozen for years, you guys. Like you can literally eat beef that's frozen for like 2 years, 3 years. And if anything, it'll, maybe it'll have a little freezer burn on it, but I'm talking, that's like 3 years. Right. You know what I mean? You could even just write a marker on it when you buy it. That's what we do. And then we just eat it within the year. That's our goal. Yeah. We have like a system in our freezer of the way we put things and we just eat it. And we always eat all of our meat within a year. It always tastes amazing. And you just have to have a system. And the more you do it, the easier it gets, the better you get at deal shopping. It's just like anything. The more you practice it, the better you get at it, you know?
Yeah. Million ways to save money on these things. So I think that does kind of cover all of our points here in a roundabout way, not in order,
way to go.
But I think we did hit it. So anything else you want to add there, Haley, or is that it?
No, I think we covered a lot, and I think it was all really good, important information. And if like there's anything we didn't cover, right? If anybody's listening to this and is like, wow, I really wish you covered XYZ, comment it. Yeah. You know, one of us will answer it or we'll cover it in the next podcast. But I feel like for the most part, we covered the bulk of the vast majority of questions we get when it comes to carnivore being affordable.
Yeah. And, you know, the last thing, take home message, if you made it this far, any meat you can eat is better than no meat at all. That's the real answer, folks. Go out there and eat it, find it, whatever. You can budget for it. If you say you can't, I'll tell you what, you didn't think about it enough. That's it. That's all it is. Anybody with any budget, hey, $9 in his bank, Coach Rye figured this shit out at one point. So I think you can too, you know, either way, that's what it takes. And, you know, guys, again, brand new podcast. We're trying to pump this out. Let us know what you want us to talk about. And if you did enjoy it and you made it this far, for one, you're a badass. For two, please share the podcast. Just share it with one person. Find somebody out there and be like, you know what? I'm going to give a carnivore experiment a try. You should listen to this podcast. It's pretty interesting. Weird people on there, but whatever. I like it, you know? And we'll be back with some more episodes here up and coming. So thank you guys for listening.
Yes, thank you.